What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Great Lakes Outdoors podcast. Today's going to be a little switcheroo. We're going to start talking about a little bit of fishing, which we should have been talking a while ago, but I can't get over these turkeys. But we got Troy with us today and a special guest that we'll get into. Troy, how's it going?
Pretty good. Good to be back. We're actually not able to fish the Detroit River area right now, so perfect time to do some podcasts while we're stuck in the house for a little while.
That's got to be tough, though, man. Out of season right now. Kind of like an out-of-season thing right now.
Yeah. It's actually really weird because this is the time when I normally would go out to the island and hang out at Celeron and stuff like that.
We're missing you, man.
I know.
We're missing you.
Can't even go out and drink a couple beers.
It's horrible. That's absolutely
It's not like I'm going to learn anything.
Yeah. Well, I've been on the boat with you, and it was like you're speaking Chinese to me, and wasn't able to learn a thing because I didn't understand the thing that you were trying to tell me. It was
we caught a lot of fish.
We caught a lot of fish, but I didn't learn a thing.
That's all.
On my own part.
All that matters is we caught them.
Right. But you want to introduce our guest today?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got Robby Lefere with us. I've had the pleasure of traveling with Robby for a couple of years now, and he's a trailblazer, man. He's got like 10 years on me, which makes me kind of old or him really kind of young. But either way, Robby's here with us today. How's it going, Robby?
Good. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. I always like talking fishing, so this should be a good time.
Heck yeah. So, today you had a boat at a car show. Is that what it was?
I did. I just got back from an event for Melling Engine Parts, one of my sponsors. They just had, they do a lot of aftermarket parts for different types of cars and race cars and whatnot. So they kind of had their big car show today. So they had some of their NHRA drag cars down there, some of their sponsored sprint cars. I was down there, and then they also opened it up to the public. So just kind of bring your hot rod or your gasser down and just hang out. So it was a good time. It was fun.
Yeah, heck yeah.
Especially when there's no fishing going on right now. Kind of beat the time. Do what you got to do for the sponsors. You got to always appreciate.
Yeah, for sure. And one thing is try and always be there for sponsor events when you can, and it just lined up perfectly with the schedule to be there this year, and it was a good time. We had great weather and couldn't ask for a better day.
For the people that don't know you, can you kind of just like tell everybody about yourself? Where you're from, how you got involved with the fishing game.
Yeah, for sure. So, my name's Robby Lefere. I'm from Jackson, Michigan, born and raised. So Jackson's about, if anyone doesn't know, is about, an hour and 45 minutes, 2 hours south of St. Clair. So, again, born and raised, I'm 24. I graduated high school in 2018. Never went to college, didn't do the college fishing deal at all. I went straight to work right out of high school, started working for an electrical company. I was an electrical apprentice for about 2.5 years. That basically kind of helped fund I always wanted to be a professional fisherman, but at the time when I was in high school, it always seemed like a pipe dream. It just wasn't in the cards for me to fish and go to college. So I kind of had to pick one of the two. So I went to work, and that kind of helped fund my state level, regional level type fishing. And I had some sponsors along the way, which we can get into that. But no, I qualified in 2021 through the Northern Toyota Series for Major League Fishing for the Invitationals, which was the pro circuit at the time, and have been doing that ever since.
That's crazy. So you sparked my interest on electrician.
Yeah, what do you think Kyle does?
So,
okay,
I'm an electrician myself, so it's kind of crazy.
Nice.
It's
nice, awesome.
It's kind of the same kind of avenue, right? I mean, we're doing the podcast and everything, and hoping that one day we get big in a sense. But I mean,
for sure,
it's everybody's goal at the end of the day. But
Yep. I mean, finding something you love and doing it, make a living at it is everyone's goal.
Right. That's were you like residential, commercial? What were you doing?
So at B&H we did a little bit of industrial actually,
Okay.
and then a little bit of residential. So I was obviously an apprentice, so I just kind of bounced around wherever they needed me. At the time, they had 5 journeymen, so it's just kind of
a smaller company then.
Yep, it was a smaller company, and I was the guy that got all the grunt work that the journeyman didn't want to do. So whatever the worst job was of the day, that's where I went.
You were the mule. You were the mule. Everybody's been there at one point.
Yep, for sure. I was the trench digger. I was the crawl space guy, the attic guy, all the fun stuff.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm past all of that. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
I mean, I did just change jobs, so I'm kind of the mule again. But this company or this job that I'm at now, I don't even know if I've talked to you about it, Troy.
I think your dad told me.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm at the hospital now, so it's just like,
yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
this light bulb's out. I'll go over here and change that light bulb out. It's like whatever. It's dumb. But being from like even the Jackson area, how much do you deer hunt? Because Jackson, like that Hillsdale area, is just insane.
So, yep. Funny thing about me is I do not do any hunting.
Really?
Nothing. Zero.
Pure fishing.
Not into deer hunting. Not in any waterfowl stuff. I'm a fisherman.
No
to
wonder
me,
you two
the
get
best
along.
time to be in the deer stand is the best time to be out on the water. So.
Yeah, Kyle doesn't believe that. He's always like, "How come we haven't gone duck hunting yet?" I'm like, "I don't know, because we're catching giant smallmouth."
Exactly. Yep. So that's just. I already do one expensive hobby. I don't need to get into another one.
That's yeah. I'm not gonna argue with that one because yeah, waterfowl hunting's not cheap. That's for sure.
Yeah, I do want to get out there though.
Because you can do a little casting blast too. You can go out there walleye fishing, smallie fishing, and then some ducks fly by. I mean,
cool.
It's not the ideal way, but you can get it done that way.
Yeah. I'm always open to trying it. I guess I've never really done it, but I've just honestly never had that interest really. But
well, maybe we could have a fishing trio this year. We could have Buck on, Robbie, and you out there for the first time. And get it done.
Heck yeah.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
See what we can do. I mean, I think I know where there's some good spots because when you go out there, there's duck hunters in those layup boats, I think, right? Is that what they call them?
Don't worry about the water. We're going to the fields. Don't worry about the water.
We're going to the fields. All right, yeah.
We're going to the fields. This will be a whole different ball game. You can't cast a line out there. You can't do none of that stuff. We're just going to be out in the fields, and that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, you might catch a corn stalk if you cast a line, but that's as far as you're going to get.
Right.
That's as far as you're going to get.
Yeah.
Heck yeah. So, speaking of saving money, so you were doing the apprenticeship, and then don't you have a little bait operation too that you might pour some of your own baits, get some custom colors?
Yeah. I mean, so early on, just obviously the cost of fishing and baits at the time, and being a high school kid, you're looking for every little thing to save every little dollar. And one thing is we really got into pouring our own soft plastics, which led to jigs and all kinds of different stuff. But I don't do it as much now, but early on, and still do it here or there, just kind of some one-off type stuff. But making your own baits, injecting your own soft plastic molds is kind of something we have, in our basement. We've got a little I don't know, bait shop to go for other terms, I guess, but it's nothing too crazy. But yeah, it's definitely something that I'm into.
So like you can make all your own different colors and things. Like how's it work? I mean, I know we've talked about it a little bit, but for the viewers that maybe don't really understand it, like what's the general process for how that even happens?
So it's one of those things that you can just start out and keep it as simple as possible. And then it's also something you could dive into it and get as complicated as you want. But in simple terms, it's just you buy the plastic, which comes in it almost looks like a jug of milk. And then that plastic gets heated up. We use like different types of crock pots, and you can use microwaves. And what that does is it turns the liquid of the plastic into like a solid, just like anyone who's ever fished with a soft plastic fishing lure. It pretty much turns it from a milk consistency to what you're fishing with, and then you just have an injector, suck it out of the pot and inject it into a mold. and that turns into, whatever shape that mold is would be whatever bait you're trying to pour. But yeah, you can get up crazy with colors. You can get crazy with consistency of the plastic, whether it's soft or hard or sinks or floats. There's all different ways you can go and things you can mess with. It's just kind of one big fisherman adult science project at the end of the day.
Yeah, I know. I've seen some of the baits that you made, and like, I didn't really think about it that much, right? I just, usually when I'm buying baits, I pick up a pack, and I know there's a couple companies where I'm like, yeah, hey, their plastic, I kind of like theirs better than some of the other ones. And, and then kind of hearing how you've actually done it, put it all together for me, and I guess there's actually some purposes for the different types of plastic too, right? Like, I'm got flipping baits that are too wimpy, you just snag all the time. Yep.
I mean, typically how it works is the softer the plastic, the more action the bait has. But the weaker and more fragile the bait is. But the harder the harder it is, it's the exact opposite. The less action it has, but the tougher and more durable the bait is.
So I'm gonna go with like a Ned rig. It's got that softer plastic, I'm going to assume, right? And compared to a regular wacky rig, it's got that tougher plastic. That's
and they make, if you take like a creature bait or any type of craw, that's going to be on your harder end of plastic. And then if you work way down to like a finesse baits, your straight tail worms or any type of drop shot worms, those are going to be your softer plastics for sure.
Because I've always wanted to try to get into that myself, because Troy might get upset about me saying this, but I make my own jig heads itself for like more of like a walleye, and I won't go further because of Troy might be a secret weapon this upcoming tournament, whatever it may be. But
don't overlook the walleye baits. That's what he's trying to say
for sure.
But I always wanted to get into the soft plastics because people have asked me about it, but it's just tough during like the walleye. It's all the same, like to be different from everybody else. I don't know. It's a lot of work for what I'm putting into it, I guess. You know what I mean? So
absolutely. And it's one of those things that, I don't do it nearly as much now. For me, starting off, I got into it because it was strictly a cost saving thing. Like I could buy a gallon of plastic, which would make roughly, obviously depending on the bait, but if you're just pouring like a Cinco style bait, you could make probably 400 to 500 Cincos with a gallon of plastic, and a gallon of plastic was $20. Wow. So
that's crazy to think about.
You go to the store and buy 400 Cincos. It's going to cost a heck of a lot more than $20. I can guarantee you that.
Yeah, you can get like 2 or 3 packs for $20.
And the hard part is, and you're only getting 5 out of that, or whatever, 10 out of that, whatever it is. But the hard part, it's like there's so much like behind the scenes work, even with the jigs. Like I'm touching each jig head, for example, 5 or 6 times, whether it be dipping or like pouring the lead, heating it up, dipping it into like the bubbler, sprinkling on the other paints. I'm touching that jig head so many times. Is it worth it to an extent? It's not a mass-produced product.
For sure. And there's a lot of times we were up till 1, 2 in the morning making baits, But the soft plastics aren't quite as time-consuming as like the jigs and the jig head lead mold type stuff, because the soft plastics really just pouring it in, heating it up, getting the color right, getting the flake right, and injecting it. And then after that, you're just letting pretty much once you open up the mold, the bait's already set up and good to go. It's not like you got to wait for this to dry or this paint to set up before you can go on to this step, or, the soft plastics a lot less time consuming than a lot of the lead mold type stuff.
And I'm sure you could say this about the soft mold side of it, or the soft plastic side of it too. It's almost like it gets to, fun to an extent. Like for me, it's like it's more of a hobby, like trying to figure out what colors look good together, and you know, it's kind of like a science project all on its own.
Exactly, and you know, in a lot of the soft plastic molds too, you're pouring 7, 8, 10 baits at a time. You know, not like the lead stuff where you're pouring 1/4 ounce jig head at a time.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So,
and that's like the bait shops. I think Troy remembers, like they're offering like 20 cents a jig head, and it's like, are you kidding
it's
me
crazy,
right now, dude? Like,
but they're selling them for a lot
man.
more.
I'm doing one a pop, like one jig head at a time. Like, are you crazy right now?
Yeah. You're gonna be there for a long time.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So Robby, I wanna get a little bit more into kind of how you started, because like we mentioned at the beginning, I mean, we're 10 years apart, fishing the same tour, and just a lot of things changed, right? Like if I look at kind of the landscape of fishing when I was even your age, like it was so much different. It's different in
it's even different than when I graduated high school in 2018. You know, I always say, you know, I graduated or went through high school fishing at a great, got a little crazy, a little out of hand, in my opinion. Like I went through high school fishing and there was no live scope, you know, or at least maybe one boat had it out of the whole field. You know, it wasn't a necessity at the time. Having all this fancy electronics wasn't a necessity at the time. So I went through high school with a 20-year-old boat that had a 7-inch graph at the console and a 9-inch graph up front, and with just 2D and mapping. You know, that's all we had, and we made it work, you know. But at the time, that live scope and all this perspective mode and crazy side imaging and all that really wasn't a huge player. You know, you had it, but it wasn't a necessity, in my opinion, you know, which really helped me out at the time. Like I said, we had a 20-year-old beater boat that, you know, half the tournaments we went to, the motor didn't start or wasn't running right. We just ran with it, made it work. You know, it just wasn't, having all that fancy stuff was not in the cards for me when I was 17, 18, 16 years old, you know.
So how does the high school stuff work? Because I didn't, like, when I went through high school, there was 0 fishing teams that I was aware of. And when you went through it, I'm assuming there was quite a few.
Yeah, so we actually, my junior year started, I went to Lumen Christi High School in Jackson, Michigan. We started the fishing team my junior year. So we started it my junior year. It was just kind of one of those things that we approached the school, said, this is something we want to do. They're having these high school tournaments. We have, I had a bass boat at the time. We had another kid whose dad had a bass boat at the time, and we had a couple boats with a handful of kids that wanted to do it, and we approached the school, and they were like, yeah, absolutely, you can put our name on it, but the funding and all that is coming from you guys. So we had to actually go out in high school and try to get sponsors to be able to do some of the bigger tournaments, like your state championship or your nationals. You know, at the time it was FLW. So we had to go out and get sponsors at that time. But, you know, and looking back at it, being 16, 17 years old, having to do that, go knock on doors and meet with local companies, I think really helped me out in the long run. But yeah, so we started it my junior year. We had, I think, 5 kids the first year on the fishing team. And then the next year after that, we had 15 or 16. And then the fishing team's actually still going at Lumen Christi today. And I believe they have 24 kids on it. I think it's bigger than their tennis and golf team combined.
Nice.
So yeah, it's pretty cool. In high school, fishing really took off around that time, that 2018, 2019 time period, because pretty much every single high school around here has the fishing team with 10 to 20 kids on it, which which is really cool. But I know for us, it was a matter of boat captains. You know, you can have as many kids on the team as you want, but when it comes down to finding boat captains and guys with boats that are willing to take a weekend off and take kids that aren't theirs or they've never met fishing was the hardest part. So we actually went to some of the local bass clubs in the Jackson area and tried getting boat captains, and we're lucky enough to have a great group of guys and guys that I'm still friends with today and have a ton of respect for today, volunteer their boats and volunteer their time and do that, take us fishing. So that was super cool.
So is that how it works then? To do one of the tournaments, you have a boat captain?
Yep.
Like
so obviously the kids can't drive the boat in high school. So the only thing the kids can operate is the trolling motor. So from, you know, pretty much from when the boat backs into the water, it's the boat captain operating it. So you obviously have to have a guy willing to sit out on a boat for 8 hours and not fish or do anything, but just drive you around.
That's like, pretty cool.
Right out of high school for us, I think it was the year I graduated, Carlson, our local high school here, started their high school fishing team up.
They've got a bunch of people on it.
Which we're actually supposed to have the coach on pretty soon.
Really?
Shout out
that's
to
cool.
Mr. Metzer and the hometown Carlson fishing team.
Nice. Yeah.
But, it's crazy. Like after I graduated, I helped out a couple times in like trying to captain boats and stuff. But like from where it is now to where it was, like they're getting rental boats that like people are just giving them like class.
That's awesome.
Like top of the class, like bass fishing boats. It seems like
that is cool.
It's insane,
awesome.
Man. Like just the change over the years. Like it's I don't know.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
I think they've been doing some tournaments just from the bank too. I think I saw on their Facebook where there's so much water around us, and you know all those sneaky spots. Well, we don't want to give up any information, but
a lot of those are probably some of the best fishing.
Yeah, there's some pretty good largemouth fishing around here.
If you bring some bush light in when you come in during the tournament, I might tell you a spot or two, but it's gonna be bush light. Just let you know. Sorry, Troy.
Yeah, no. which we can't say anything about the
we won't
waterways right now since we're in the off limits, so we've got to keep that to ourselves for now. But so that's really interesting though, because it's actually similar to how college started. Because when I first started the college team at Central, we were one of the first teams, and actually, so Kevin Hunt, who's the tournament director for the Tackle Warehouse Invitationals that Robbie and I are fishing, he was actually the tournament director for college fishing when it first started. And it was sweet. Honestly, it was awesome. Like they actually gave you a travel stipend, and then the Toyota series. So Robbie kind of mentioned a little bit, just for people that don't know exactly how you travel up the ranks. Basically there's a AAA circuit that's called the Toyota series. It used to be the Stren series, but it's been just changes with the sponsor, right? And like if you top 5 or 6 for Angler of the Year in that, which is those are more regional based. So like ours is the Northern Division, fishes Michigan, a bunch of guys from Michigan, Ohio, over to like New York and down to like the Potomac River, Maryland, Virginia area. Like that whole chunk is the Northern Division. And if you top 5 or 6 that for the year, that's how you get your qualification into the next level up, which was the pro circuit, and now it's the invitationals. So that's how you actually get there. But like when we did college tournaments, when they first started, they would pay the Toyota series guys that didn't make the final day to stay for an extra day.
Really?
And so like when I was in college, I fished these tournaments, but I didn't even have like a boat to go do that. I mean, we had a boat, but we just fished with the Toyota series guys because that's what you had to do actually. And it was crazy. Like we had just a wide variety of skill levels fishing these things. And today, like a college tournament, I feel like it's as hard to win a college tournament as it is to win a Toyota series. Like, does that seem right to you, Robbie?
Yeah. I mean, just the whole competition across the board, even through high school and college, all the way up to what we're fishing, and it is, to me, just taking a step up for sure.
Now, does that add pressure for you guys? Because I mean, growing up, like it was never this way, where like the high school and like you'd be fishing off the banks or somebody's boat, like, and you'd be doing it for fun, and then your dream obviously you'd be on TV doing the tournaments or whatever it may be on the Outdoor Channel or whatever you watch it on.
Yeah,
you have so much competition nowadays. Like, it's got to be that much harder to even be in the situation or the spot that you guys are in, because all those people are beating at the door trying to be or to get at your spot. Like, it's got to be somewhat putting pressure on you, and you got to love the sport and like how many people are getting involved with it, but at the same time it's like, yo, back off a little bit. I like it here, man. Like, chill.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the biggest thing it does is it forces, I think the modern day professional bass fishermen work significantly harder than what you had to do to survive or compete even 15, 20 years ago, even earlier than that. Just spending time on the water, understanding electronics, setting your boat up right, spending time on the water. Like, even high school kids nowadays, I mean, there's kids taking a month, 2 months off in the summer and traveling and fishing every single day. Like, that just wasn't heard of, even in 2018 when I was in high school, and it's just, what that's done is just elevated the sport in the anglers all the way up. Now those kids go through high school doing that, they go to college and do that, and now by the time they get to the Toyota Series or Invitationals level, they've spent more time on the water and traveled to more places than someone who is just fishing the Toyota Series for his first year and didn't do any the high school or college stuff before then.
It's kind of like the same thing that we're doing with the waterfowl aspect of it all. Like, we're out there, or out like previous years, I was out there every single day scouting, checking fields, and making sure the hunts were going smoothly. It's the same thing where it's whoever puts more work in and who wants it more. At the end of the day, like studying the water, studying the temperatures, where the fish are on these days, sunny days, cloudy days, whatever it may be, just taking it all in.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's crazy how good the competition is now. I mean, I did decent in some of the college tournaments, and like, looking back at it, I think if I was competing against the guys that are in them now, I don't think we would have done very good, to be honest. Like, we were showing up with like no practice, and we were just rolling with it, man. Like, we actually fished the Potomac River, Robbie, out of Smallwood, and I went to the point that's like, how they usually make that release fish area off limits?
Yeah. Yep.
Well, so I went to like that first point on the right and threw a swim jig, and I caught like 3 good ones before they were even done calling boat numbers.
Okay.
And then back then you actually had to I couldn't weigh 5 fish in. It was kind of odd. Like, the other guy had to catch, the most I could weigh in was like 3.
Oh, gotcha.
I think they might have had a 6 fish limit actually. So I think you could weigh in 3 and 3 or something like that.
Gotcha.
And so I had the swim jig deal doing. My buddy wasn't getting on them, but we went over there, man. But like, that's the only place I fished. And then all the other college teams that were like locals just sat on that weed bed right in front of Smallwood, and it was like 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th place. I mean, honestly, I did the same thing at the Detroit River one time. Like, we just like sat in front of the boat ramp, and it was just like, oh, cool. There they are.
Yeah.
Western Michigan won that tournament, and like, they weren't biting in the morning, and they came back, and it was John Gibson Jr. And like, he's like, yeah, we came back at the end of the day, and it was all big ones. I was like, oh man,
that's crazy. Huh.
Yeah, exactly. It was,
but you probably didn't know any better. I mean, you didn't really practice, never probably been there before. You just put the troll motor down and go.
Yeah, we have no idea what we were doing.
Yeah.
Like, dude, I fished Lake Champlain in a college tournament, and I went to like that, not the gut, but the other one. And I just like went in through there, and we just largemouth fished all day. I think we weighed in like 5 fish for like 9 pounds. But the team that won sat at the gut. I'm convinced now I know what they did. Like, it was really windy that day, and I think the team that won just sat at the gut and weighed in like 17 pounds and won.
Nice.
And knowing what I know now, I'm like, that was the easiest tournament to win ever.
Yeah.
Or like
nowadays, 17 pounds, you don't even get a good job going across the stage.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, when I was doing it, man, like, it was just a different arena completely. Not even remotely
100%.
similar to today's environment.
But the way that you're talking, you were also lighting your headlights with like candles.
Oh,
when you're
yeah.
driving down the road. With you talking about your age and Robbie being that much younger than you, you sound like you're in the 1800s.
It sounds like it, but that's just how fast fishing has evolved, man. Like, I think that's my point.
Yeah.
It's like we went from the dark ages to just totally just full technology, all the people just lining up to go in and try to make it to the professional levels. I mean, even when I was like in high school, people knew I fished, but there was very few people that were really into the same level that I was, like, that wanted to do anything with it.
Well, and that's what it seems like too. Even from when I graduated in 2018, it seems like fishing gets, in a sense, cooler and cooler, if that makes sense. Like, before it was like, oh, you fish tournaments. Everyone in high school is like, what is that? Now people at least know what it is and understand it, and I think that draws more interest in it too. People are, understand it more, and it just seems like it's getting to become more and more popular, and it's becoming cooler and cooler. I mean, it was like before, like, no one, oh, you like to fish, that's cool, you know. But now it seems to be definitely a lot more popular.
From the outside looking in, it almost seems like it's more of like let me like break this down like a science, almost like let me if I do this, or if, like, they're more of trying to figure it out step by step instead of just throwing a line out there with the bobber and fishing, or throwing a wacky rig out there and hoping for the best. They're really breaking stuff down, and I think that's the evolving with the graphs and baits and everything. I think more people are like, I think that people like precise. Yeah, I think people like that more than just your regular fishing, I should say.
Yeah,
100%, 100%. And it's like a cool story with that is last summer I took a couple younger kids fishing. They were 12, 13 years old, and before the modern day electronics, we would have gone out. It was in the end of August. It was 89, 90 degrees that day. Flat, calm, sunny. The water's as hot as it's going to get. We would have gone out on an outside weed edge or a deep hump or deep point and bombed a drop shot or blind casted something, and we would have caught some fish. But, with today's modern electronics, now we go out there, these kids can see what they're fishing. They can see what they're throwing at. They can see fish on it. They can see their bait. They can see a fish come up and eat their bait. And we, that day, each kid caught 25, 30 fish a piece, and now they're addicted to bass fishing. They text me once a week asking me about baits and graphs and lakes. And, I think the electronics, yes, there's disadvantages to them, but there's also an advantage of it makes it more fun for the younger kids, in my opinion. It definitely helps you catch a lot more fish. And it's like, if I wouldn't have had a live scope or forward-facing sonar on my boat that day, we might have caught 10 fish the whole day between the three of us. Instead, those kids caught 30 apiece and had an absolute blast and are addicted to the sport now.
Here's the thing, though. Dylan, my buddy Dylan down in Ohio, I think Troy met him, no? Troy, you've met Dylan or no?
I know Dylan. I don't know if I've met him in person.
So Dylan Nostrand, I think he knows Robbie or has heard of Robbie. I think because that's what we talked about or whatever it may be. Good smallmouth fisherman out of Erie.
Mm-hmm.
I took him out on the river walleye fishing. That live scope messed him up, man, because he wanted to like look at that as a TV. Like, oh, I can see the fish coming up. I can see it. It's like, I don't care about that stupid thing. Reel the stupid fish in, and the big fisherman out of the whole boat.
Yeah.
Didn't catch a single walleye that entire day.
Oh, no.
And it's like, dude.
Oh, it'll do that too. It'll do that too.
Figure it out, man. It's like, holy smokes.
Dude. Yeah, Robbie knows that I like it. I like live scope almost more just because it does distract some people. Like, I still catch a lot of fish without it, honestly. Like, I
100%.
catch a lot of fish without it, honestly. Probably almost all my big ones that I catch because Robbie knows I'll look at it and I'll be like, oh, that's a carp. Like, I ain't that good with it yet. Like, I know what a smallmouth looks like, but once they start getting big, like, they just look too big. And then and
that's like when we go to Sam Rayburn or a lake in Florida, we're just not coming from the north. And obviously we spend more time on the bodies of water up here than any other part of the country. We're just not used to looking at 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 pounders on live scope. You know, to me, like, I remember when we went to Sam Rayburn this year and just fishing deep timber and seeing a lot of suspended fish. Like, I caught one that was right around 8 pounds in practice, and if that was in Michigan, I wouldn't have never even thrown at it. I would have told you it was a carp, you know.
Yeah.
But it's just, we're just not used to looking and seeing fish, bass that big on forward facing sonar. So it's just, it's definitely different and goofy for us to be throwing at fish that would be considered a carp in Michigan.
I'm not saying I've caught 8-pound bass before out of Erie, but I've been pretty dang close to it.
Yeah,
remember that
they're in
smallie?
there.
You remember that smallie that I caught a couple years ago? I think like
you sent me a picture of it. Yeah,
I'm telling you, there's some big fish here. It's just finding them and trying to, get at them. They're out there for sure.
What was the one the guy caught last year, Robbie? Was it 11 or 12 pounds?
Largie?
Smallmouth.
What?
Yeah.
Who caught that?
The new Ontario record last year.
Oh yeah, I have no idea, but
I thought it was like 11 pounds.
That's crazy. It doesn't surprise me. I mean,
that's insane.
Yeah, and
Massive.
The thing about smallmouth, like on live scope, is they get hard to tell the size because they don't. Eventually, a smallmouth's going to grow to a certain length and stop growing. You know, they get thicker and wider. So it's really hard to tell once a smallmouth gets 4 pounds and really even 3 3/4, in my opinion, it's hard to tell. It's really hard to tell the difference between a 3 3/4 and a 5, 6 pound smallmouth on live scope. But largemouth are the opposite. Like, you catch a 8 or 9 pound largemouth, you know, especially down south, that's a long fish.
Right.
Right. So it looks that those are the ones that, you know, look really, really big on live scope.
That smallmouth was 10.15 pounds.
That's crazy.
November 3rd, 2022, Greg Gallagher.
Good for that guy. That's awesome.
Sounds like a good day to be goose hunting, I'll tell you that much.
That's exactly. Now you got it.
That's Troy, I believe you lived out in California, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yeah, for a couple of years.
Now, I've heard that the fishing out there is like unbelievable.
It is good. There's some private lakes that are really, really good.
But like
big fish, yeah.
Is there any tournaments out that way or no?
Just there are, but they're not really the pro tours don't go out there very often just because it's so far away.
Okay. So you mostly say
there's like Toyota Series tournaments over there, and I fished those as a co-angler. I mean, it's crazy, man. Like
there's some of the fish out there, and the only reason why I ask is like just from both of you to see like how, like fishing out that way.
Yeah.
I've heard them fish out there could get easily bigger than the Florida fish.
Yeah, they get huge. I mean, California water's clear too, so you could see them in the spring. And like, I'd be going around. I had like a little 14-foot aluminum boat, and I would go out to Lake Paris, which is in the Inland Empire by Riverside, and like you could see 8 and 9 pounders like swimming around.
That's nuts.
And then they put those trout in those lakes, the ones they grow,
rainbows and stuff.
Yeah. And so I had this trout swim bait, and you would throw it out there. And like one day there was a monster just busting on these trout. And I threw the swim bait out there, and it didn't freaking eat it, man. But like, it was like at least an 8 to 10 pounder. I mean, one time I actually have a picture of it somewhere on my phone. Like there was a floater, and it had like eaten a giant bluegill, and it got stuck in its gill plate.
Oh,
I think it weighed like 9 3/4 pounds. And I like pulled the gill out of its gill plate and it just like swam back down.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
Have you ever fished out there, Robbie, or no?
I never have. I mean, I've watched plenty of tournaments on YouTube or TV that are out there and kept up with the fishing out there. I've just never. The fishing always looks awesome and looks great. And yes, you have a chance of catching just a fish of a lifetime, but that's a long drive from Michigan.
Yeah, if they put a pro circuit tournament on the California Delta, that would be like a bucket list for me. The California Delta, Robbie, is probably one of the best largemouth fisheries I've ever seen in my life.
Which I heard it goes unspoken. Like nobody really talks about it much.
They'll have a Toyota series here and there up there, but like, man, that place we went and they were spawning. There were so many monsters. It was scary. Like, yeah,
that's crazy. That's
especially
crazy.
Being
it better be good for as long as it takes to get there.
Yeah, right.
And staying alone itself. I mean,
like, imagine looking at a 9.5 pounder on a bed, man.
Yeah, that'd be crazy.
And it's in like 2 feet of water, just sitting there. It was crazy.
Sounds like fun to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Me and Troy talked about it a little bit. I was actually in the marina where the podcast room's at. We were out working on, personally, I was working on the dock lights, and my buddy that usually is the co-host for the podcast, which isn't here right now, obviously, his girlfriend was out there flipping a frog out in between the docks and stuff, and she goes across and looks down in the water and sees this little thing out there floating, and it looks like a jellyfish. Well, lo and behold, the Great Lakes have freshwater jellyfish.
Really?
So that's the answer right there.
I'm learning something.
He's got a picture of it.
I never knew it was a thing, and I'll send it to you. I don't know if I can send it to you right now, but I'll send it to you.
Okay.
It was one of the most bizarre things I've ever seen. And it kind of
that's crazy.
Gives me.
Can they sting you?
They can't, because they can't get big enough.
Gotcha. Yeah, I had no clue. I had no idea that was a thing.
In my, I guess the question is that a bait that bass go after? I mean, since they're typically in deep flowing water. I mean, who knows? I don't know. It's just, I'm still blown away by this. And this was a couple days ago. I don't know. It's just all crazy to me, honestly.
Troy, maybe we're missing out. We need to get on that jellyfish pattern.
Jellyfish bite. That's dude, he's gonna send you the picture of it. It kind of looks like that what's that bait? That Japanese one where it looks like a piece of foam with like a bunch of
the fuzzy dice looking thing.
Yeah.
It
looks like that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'd like to think I've spent a lot of time on the water, and I've never seen one in my life or heard of it. So
yeah, me either.
It kind of makes you wonder what else is out there that the fish are targeting, later in the year, or the deeper waters and stuff. It's just I don't know. It just kind of makes
I don't know.
Curious.
I mean, apparently Champ in Lake Champlain. I didn't see him. Did you see him when you were looking through the flogger, Robbie? Is he down there?
No. With live scope nowadays, if that thing was in the lake, somebody would have seen him by now. That doesn't exist.
That's true, actually.
Kind of bizarre to me. How's your season going for you so far?
Not bad. I've had a consistent season, but I've had one bomb at West Point, and other than that, I've been decently happy with some of my finishes. But it's just, this level's a whole nother ball game. I'm sitting out of 150 anglers, 51st in points. So right around the top third of the field. But just like I said, it just seems like every tournament, just one extra fish. You're so close to that cut line, But no, I mean, it's every year I've improved a little bit, just kind of inching my way up, and it is a learning curve, and these guys are obviously very good anglers at this level. So I feel very comfortable, when we're at the northern states and the northern lakes, and getting more and more comfortable as we go down south is the big thing.
I don't know if you could look right now, not to get off topic, but I believe I just sent it to you on your Instagram.
Okay. Yep.
Um,
I just got a message.
because my text messages typically don't work or don't come out clear while on the phone. But if you could look at that, tell
Oh,
me
it's a
how.
video.
Yeah, video. Tell me how
Oh, I
crazy
see
that
it.
is.
What the heck? Was that somebody's pet that they dropped in the lake? Like, what is that?
No, there was about 5 or 6 of them out there. It was absolutely.
Oh,
I was mind blown away. Like she was telling
yeah.
Crazy.
I've never seen anything like that.
Fonzie's girlfriend's
I'm
like,
learning something today. That's wild.
there's a jellyfish out here. I'm like, you're absolutely out of your mind right now, Fonzie. Run as far as away as you possibly can from her. And no, sure enough, it was a jellyfish floating out there.
Holy cow. Yeah, I had no idea, but I do now.
Another question I wanted to ask you guys, both of you guys. I always go back and forth from people like bass fishing and you know, back in the day, they used to just, you know, carve their own lures and used to catch tanks. You know, you never go back from like your roots, you know, like nowadays lures are $30-$40 a piece, whatever they are. I honestly don't know. But do you guys need all that fancy, like crazy expensive lures all the time? Or like, I mean, I feel like soft plastics are like the way to go half the time, or just a deep diving crankbait. It seems like almost that in my opinion.
I mean, Troy, I can tackle this first, and Troy can back me up on this. He's obviously roomed with me the last 2 years and gets to see my front deck, you know, every day when we come in. I mean, I use Strike King is one of my sponsors, and I literally use 99% of their stuff. I'm just a firm believer in that. Their stuff's not a crazy price point baits. You know, they're in that mid-range price point of soft plastics and hard baits, and I don't know. I just grew up using Strike King stuff. I have a lot of confidence in it, and that's what I use. I use their soft plastics all the way through their top waters, frogs, jerk baits. Pretty much, if they make it, I use it, and Troy can back that up. And their stuff's not all that expensive.
Yeah, I'm usually begging them for something. I'm like, hey, you got any spinner baits?
Yeah.
You got any square bills? But no, I think there is like that whole high end market though, right? Like with the glide baits and stuff, especially, which I've never really thrown them. Have you thrown them?
I've dabbled into it a little bit, not too crazy, but obviously with live scope now, I do think there's that glide bait game is definitely becoming more and more of a player, and I think live scope has a lot to do with that. But no, I haven't dove into it probably as much as I should have.
I mean, I guess it's a question for the younger kids too, because everybody sees those big lures out there, like the big fancy lures, and it's just like more of I always kind of go back to like the waterfowl or turkey hunting aspect of it all, just because that's what I do most, like mainly. You don't need all that fancy stuff all the time. You don't need the top stuff every single time you go out there. You can get away with like the cheapest out of the cheapest stuff and still catch fish. I mean, yeah, and that's my opinion. I'm not a professional bass fisherman, but like you don't need all the crazy fancy poles, lures. I mean, it helps. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, you know, it hits a point.
Yeah, I mean, the scent is probably one of the biggest things, and like even the rods. Like I'm hustling my uncle out of like a $25. Literally, this isn't even made up at all. On the 4th of July, hopefully he's going to bring me this like 6.6 medium action Walmart special. It was like $25, but it's my favorite jerkbait rod for some reason. And I still use it. Like it's literally 20 years old probably. I mean, it's crazy. But I mean, to your point, like if you've got stuff that you like and you know how to use it, then you're still going to catch fish with it.
Yep. And I'm the same way, kind of. I'm a firm believer of using what works best for you, whether that's the highest end rod or the lowest end rod, and keeping things simple. If you look at my boat, I don't have a million different soft plastics and a million different colors. I keep 3 or 4 staple colors that I know is going to work all across the country. And I'm the same way with my hard baits and, you know, my rods. I try and keep the actions simple. I try to keep all the same reels on my bait casters. I'll keep the same frame reel, just in a different gear ratio. And same thing with my spinning rods and reels. I want the same reel, the same rod. It can be a different length in action, but I want the same brand, same feel, same. It's, to me, I always tell people it's like professional golfers. And this is just my opinion. You never see a professional golfer play with 3 different brands of clubs. He always wants, the clubs are different lengths and different when it comes to the head. But, I always want that same feel, same, when I bend down and pick a rod up, I want it to feel the same as the one that I just put down. Okay. So that's my way of thinking.
Speaking of professional golfers, we got my buddy Mitch here in the studio, and about 2 weeks ago, we were on a bachelor party for my soon-to-be brother-in-law, and Mitch himself is probably one of the worst golfers I've ever seen in my life. I tell you what, man. Wow. He would shoot the ball
opposite way.
I swear to God, he would be facing you, but shoot straight down the fairway. Like, it was crazy. I'm just saying. Sorry, Mitch. I just had to throw it out there.
You played that up.
He doesn't even have a mic to defend himself.
Hey, he could use my mic. He's just got to grab it. That's all. I don't know. That's, yeah. I agree. Like, for me, I will say the first time me and Troy have ever fished, I go to Troy's boat. I got my one pole and a couple of, like, my little tiny tackle box, and here Troy is with 30 different poles on his boat, and I'm like, He's like, hey, we're chasing smallies. Like, you got your drop shot stuff, and I was like, dude, I don't even know what that is. Like, no idea what that is, man. He's like, don't worry, I got you. And it's like, I was so out of it.
Yeah, man. That was a great day, though.
It was.
Yeah, and that's just my opinion. I mean, Troy could be completely different. The next guy after that could be completely different. And like I said, it's just about using what works for you and what you think, will put more fish and bigger fish in the boat for you. Right. Every bass fisherman's different.
Right. Yeah, it's confidence.
Yeah. Yep. Confidence goes a long way. That's for sure.
I mean, I feel like that's the main. For everything, for us, waterfowl hunting, deer hunting, turkey hunting, confidence leads you to success in like your own situation. Because if you don't have your confidence behind your own product, then
right,
like you're I don't want to say you're not trying as hard, but like you're just kind of going through the motions at a point. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like I said, my opinion on it. My last question for you: what's your transition for like listeners out there between, your spring, your summer, and fall? Because I mean, we're midsummer right now.
Yep.
How are you usually fishing like for fish? Because there's a lot of people out there and kids fishing off the docks and offshore. What should they be throwing out there? What's your kind of, progression through like the spring and then going into the fall and obviously the summer?
Yeah, for sure. And that's definitely that's a loaded question because there's a lot of factors that go into that. What part of the country you're in, what does your lake look like as far as depth, water clarity, and all that. But I mean, just a general rule of thumb is, to me, you always try to, in the spring, the biggest thing for me is, especially in our local inland lakes around here, which majority of probably the listeners of this will be fishing 200 to 1,000 acre inland lakes, is number one, understanding when and where the fish spawn. That's a big thing. That's a huge learning curve on the lakes. If you can understand and know where the fish spawn, that's a big thing. Typically it's some of the biggest flats on the lake. And then, progressing out deeper from that as it warms up and the water temperature warms up throughout the course of the year, and as it cools down, they start to work their way back up to those spawning areas and shallower flats. But like I said, that's a tough question to answer because every lake's different. Every part of the country is different.
Let me give you a scenario here.
Yeah.
So I'm fishing a canal, murky water, pretty much year round. because I'm going towards it as like a younger kid getting into the fishing sport, I should say.
Yeah, for sure.
The weeds kind of get, thicker vegetation along the sides. It opens up because the water's flowing in the middle. Like I said, a little bit murky. I mean, what's your kind of? I mean, there's a deep spot in the middle where that water is flowing.
I mean, to me, if you're in a canal that has low to bad water clarity, and has current in it, I mean, to me, in the spring, in the cooler months, the fish are going to want to be out of the current because, I mean, they can't typically, especially largemouth, can't spawn in the current. So look for areas and pockets and current breaks that are out of the current in the spring. And then as the water warms up in the summer, go out to that deeper water or go get into that current is what I would do.
And what about going into the fall? Is it kind of back to like the spring?
Yeah, the fall kind of backtracks. I mean, typically you're going to have a migration of fish into those shallower creeks in the spring because they're going to move in there to spawn. I'm talking especially largemouth. And then in the summer, they'll work their way out. And then in the fall, as that water cools down and the bait starts to move into those pockets and creeks, the fish will follow them. So, I mean, you would want to really fish it in the spring and really fish it in the fall. And then in the summer, it might be a little tougher.
Because, I mean, I find
in a shallower creek like that.
I find so many kids, like in the springtime, they're like, man, they're loving fishing. And then, once it gets a little bit later in the year, they kind of drift off of fishing. Like, how do you keep them kids keep on getting after it?
And that's anywhere around the country. I mean, the fishing typically, there's a reason why, and Troy can attest to this, there's a reason why our invitational circuit typically follows the spawn, because the fishing's always better in the spring. It doesn't matter if you're in Texas or you're in Michigan. When you're in and around the spawn, that's always the best time of the year to be out on the lake, in my opinion. I mean, yes, the fall bite's good. Yes, the summer bite can be good, but to me, if you could pick, I can only fish 1 week out of the year on this body of water, you're probably always gonna pick somewhere around the spawn, right. But or in the spring. But no, I mean, it's one of those things that in fishing for, when that good time of the year is going to be, when the slower time of the year is going to be. So if you're a kid that's just getting into it, you might want to go out with the guy during a good time of the year.
Get out in them deeper waters.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, we're blessed around here in the Michigan area and the northern part of the country that our fishing's pretty good year round. If it's open water and you can get a boat out there, the fishing's pretty dang good.
Right.
Absolutely. So I've got another question kind of for the up and comers as well. So, you're probably one of the guys, Robby, that I would look at and say is pretty good at getting sponsors. Maybe really good. And a lot of guys really struggle with that. And I think you kind of alluded to it earlier today, but do you have any tips or strategies that you might share with people who are like, how, you made it, you're 24, you've been able to get enough sponsorship to get it to the invitationals and do well for yourself. So what do you think is the secret sauce to that?
Again, that's another tough question. And to me, I mean, sponsorship is the most important when it comes to fishing. There's nothing more important than sponsorships and sponsors. So and that's one of the hardest things to do and get, and it gets harder and harder every single year. But I mean, the biggest advice I have is look for companies and look for non-endemic stuff that maybe doesn't get asked a million times a year, that still, could benefit from a professional fisherman or from, someone in the fishing industry. The cool part about being a bass fisherman is you have a boat and you can always take people fishing on it. So, I mean, maybe the non-endemic sponsor doesn't have a real good tie into fishing, but you can take customers and employees out on the water, just looking for different ways and different ideas to promote that brand and help that brand out outside of just catching a bass and putting a logo on a jersey and going across the stage. I mean, it's the toughest part, and it's not easy. You get a ton of no's, and you get a million no's to every one yes, but it's something that, I've always tried to work equally as hard, if not harder, off the water than I do on the water. And to me, it's just what you have to do to survive as a modern day professional bass fisherman.
And I don't know how both of you guys feel about this, but like for us, wise, like in our sponsors, I don't want to run a product just because like they're helping us out, and like I don't trust that product. I want to run a product that like
for sure
I stand behind, because I don't want to keep promoting a product that it's like, I guess you go with these guys. It's like I want to have the same passion and drive to help those people out, and go to those car shows that you were just talking, or I think it was a car show you were just at. No.
Yeah.
Like you want to do that stuff for them because they're doing the same for you.
Exactly. And especially with the endemic stuff. I mean, you're promoting companies and brands that you use and believe in, because at the end of the day, you go out and get a rod and reel sponsor or a tackle company sponsor, or even an electronic sponsor, and you don't use that product, it's going to show, and at the end of the day, it's not going to do any good for you.
Right.
I mean, you can go out and get free electronics or free rods, free reels, but if you're not going to use them, it's just not going to be great for you. So it's combined in the perfect, endemic, non-endemic mix, and getting on board with companies that you believe in is extremely important as well.
And that's the thing with us, whether it's calls, like kind of shameless plug here, like the GK calls or the Firebolt calls for the turkeys, like GK we're running for our waterfowl calls, the Migra ammunition, like those are like the companies that are like we're wanting to help promote, and I don't know, like I'm not going to keep on promoting something and then like people don't even use them half the time. Just they just want a name behind it. Like they just want to be sponsored by somebody even though they're not using it.
Yeah.
Like, we're using it because like we believe in it. Like we're not just hiding behind something and using something else. It's just
right.
For sure. And another big thing I have is really trying to separate yourself from the guy next to you or another angler in your circuit, not necessarily with fish catching and you made the cut in this tournament, didn't make the cut. But I know like a big thing for me that really helped me out was understanding how to work a camera and edit a video and understand the nuances of social media. Mm-hmm. Not saying I'm the best at it or great at it by any means, but if, let's say my title sponsor, Auto Owners, calls me tomorrow and says, hey, we want you to do a last-minute video about this topic. Can you get it done so we can post it tomorrow? I can do that, and go out by myself, film and edit a video that's good enough in a good enough quality that they can put it on their social media the next day. They don't have to have a guy come meet me, or I don't have to schedule a date to meet them. That's a huge value in my opinion that can separate yourself from the angler next to you, because at the end of the day, catching a bass and making cuts. Yeah. Okay, great. You made 5 cuts this year, that's cool. But at the end of the day, social media and providing for sponsors in other ways outside of just walking across the stage is becoming more and more popular than finishing 50th place over 60th.
So you're basically saying Troy needs to grow a mullet, shave his beard off, wear it cut off most of the time, and then really be able to promote what he's standing for.
He's saying it doesn't matter if I catch fish. I just got to be
guys,
good.
but it's not going to work for everybody.
Yeah,
Well, thank God, because
I don't think I'm that
Troy.
redneck.
I don't want to see Troy that way, man.
I'm not that redneck.
Yeah.
But, Troy, you got anything else?
Yeah. So without giving up anything too significant, when are you going to release this podcast?
2 weeks.
In 2 weeks. Okay, well, it's perfect. So, Robby, little Detroit River preview for the MLF guys, all right? So, What are we thinking here? Because the BFL just got done, and somebody smashed them. There was like a 24-pound bag on Saturday out of Elizabeth Park.
Yeah.
But honestly, the top 10 looked kind of sad.
Yeah. I saw it. I
think it was like 18 pounds got you in the top 10.
Yeah, and I don't know the weather that day. I mean, it could have been blowing 25 miles an hour.
I think it was blowing.
Yeah, I have no idea, but you know the winning weight was really good, and it dropped off pretty significantly after that, especially when you got out of the top 10. You know, but I don't know. I mean, things have been warm this year. Things are quite a bit ahead, in my opinion. I went to St. Clair in Erie right before the cutoff, and I mean the water was extremely warm. The grass is extremely thick in a lot of areas that I've never seen it as thick as it has been, and I probably think that's from the mild spring and the warm weather we've had recently. You know, so I think it'll be a little bit different than what it usually is. But one thing is, I mean, the fish were extremely healthy looking, at least the ones I was catching, you know, which typically when you go there in June on St. Clair especially, they're coming right off the spawn. They're skinny as a rail, kind of. You'll catch one that's got a 4-pound frame that only weighs 3.5 pounds, where, you know, a lot of the ones I was catching were the exact opposite. They had already fattened back up and already look like they're in their summer pattern, you know. So it'll be a little bit different, but I think the weights will be really good for our tournament. You know, I think by the time the end of July rolls around, that post-spawn kind of funk will be done. The fish will be where they should be, and I think guys are going to catch them.
I got to agree with you, but the real question is, where's it going to get one?
It's going to get one out of Lake Erie, in my opinion. I think you're going to have a lot of checks cashed out of St. Clair. And to me, that depends on the weather, too.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
If the week of the tournament, I'm looking at the days of our tournament, and it's blowing out of the northeast 15 to 20 miles an hour, or the southeast, you know, I don't know if it'll get one out of Erie. But if we've got some good weather, I mean, I think Erie's just been putting out big bags, you know.
Yeah. I think I agree with you.
You think?
I think I do. It's one of those deals where when St. Clair's on, it's on, though. And
for sure. And I know as good as our guys are, the way St. Clair sets up, there's really no home field advantage on St. Clair, especially the time of the year we're going to be there. I mean, they're just going to be out there. You're going to have your trolling motor on 100, panning until you see one, and you're going to pitch at it. It's just going to be about finding the right area and being in the right spot at the right time and getting that one extra big bite. Where Erie, you know, it's got a little bit more of a home field advantage. You're fishing a lot of times isolated targets, and I think that could be a player. But like I said, I don't claim to be an Erie expert by any means. I haven't spent near as much time out there as I probably should have. But yeah, to me, it's going to come down to the weather.
Yeah, I think the weather will probably be the biggest factor.
Yep. Yeah.
It's going to be interesting. We might fish all 3 days in the river.
I hope not.
I'm banking on it, baby. Let's go. Yeah. I don't even need to practice.
Yeah, I really, really hope not.
I mean, if it's all 3 days in the river, it's going to get one on like 17 a day.
It might be one on largemouth.
Actually, that's a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think they will. I think we're going to go full blast. Just because of where we're launching.
I would hope so. I mean, I would hope if they were going to keep us in the river, they would just cancel the day, you know, but you never know.
Got to adapt and overcome. That's the thing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So what do we get paid in the top 50? So that's how our tournaments work. What do you think 50th place has after 2 days?
again, depends on the weather, but I'm thinking 18 3/4 pounds a day.
Whew.
Wow.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Is what I'm thinking.
You're probably
50th
right.
place. You gotta at least be sniffing that 18
Man,
3/4, 19 pound range. I mean, I know how our tournaments go. I know the guys we fish against everywhere we go. I always think the weights are astronomically high, so that's what I'm going with.
Yeah, that's probably. Yeah, it's probably pretty close. I'm going to say 18 and a half. I think 18 and a half.
Yeah. Yeah.
Per day.
I mean, that'd be fine with me.
It all just depends, right? But it's gonna be high. That's, I think,
I think it will be. So, but again, it depends on the weather.
Right.
You got any others?
It's the last question for me.
Well, I appreciate you spending the time with us.
No, thank you. Thanks for having me on. It was fun.
I am really looking forward to the in-person.
Yeah, for sure.
The day before the tournament?
July 25th, the off day.
And yeah, to meet you in person and hear all this Chinese blabber about fishing again.
We'll see what changes. We'll get a better idea of the top 50s. So Robbie said 18 3/4 for the record. So when we come back on July 25th, we'll see what we're thinking then.
I'll write it down. If for the people that want to look you up on social media, or you want to shout out your social media, your sponsors.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, all my stuff's pretty much under Robby Lefere Fishing, just my name, no spaces, and fishing at the end. And again, I'm extremely grateful for all the sponsors and help I do have. It's not something I couldn't do without them. So thank you I'm not going to bore you guys and go through every single one, but thank you to all of them. And yeah, I look forward to meeting you in person in less than a month.
Yeah, that's I'm definitely looking forward to it. This is all new news to me with you coming in, so I'm stoked. I'm already starting to vacuum, starting to clean the room up for you. And
There we go.
So
there we go.
We'll be set to go.
Unfortunately, I don't know if the basement bedroom is going to be done when you stay at my house, but hey, man, there's a nice bed in there. No, there's a nice bed in there. It's just, we haven't finished it completely yet, but we got the walls and everything. We just need to do the trim and everything, but
I'm sure we've stayed in a lot worse, Troy.
Oh, I guarantee that.
So as long as there's a roof over your head, you got a mattress, you'll be all right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep, exactly. Exactly.
Robbie, again, I appreciate you tuning in or calling in, and like I said, I can't wait to meet you in person, man.
No problem. Thank you.
So
I appreciate it.
Stay on the line for a little bit longer, and for all the listeners out there, I appreciate everybody tuning in. Troy, I appreciate you coming in, and good luck to both of you guys for the rest of the year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So until next time, guys, we'll see you.
Yep. Take it easy, Robbie.